Imagine walking through a normal building, taking just one wrong step, and suddenly the entire world disappears. No streets, no sky, no people, just endless yellow walls, buzzing fluorescent lights, and a strange silence that feels louder than any scream. Sounds like a nightmare, right? Well, that's exactly the terrifying idea behind Backrooms, one of the most talked about horror movies of 2026. But here's the scary part. The monster isn't what should frighten you the most. The real horror is the place itself. And trust me, by the end of this video, you'll understand why thousands of people say they would rather face a ghost than spend just 1 hour inside the Backrooms. Before we talk about the movie, here's something that feels almost impossible. The director, Kane Parsons, didn't become famous by working in Hollywood. He started as a teenager uploading creepy Backrooms videos to YouTube. Those videos became so popular that one of the biggest independent studios, A24, trusted him to direct a full-length feature film. Think about that for a second. Most teenagers are worried about school assignments, but Kane was building an entire horror universe that eventually became a major theatrical release. It's proof that one great idea can completely change someone's life. Even more impressive, he became A24's youngest feature film director. The moment this movie was announced, horror fans couldn't stop talking about it. Some people expected another typical monster movie. Others thought it would simply recreate the YouTube series. But the film took a different path. Instead of relying only on jump scares, it focuses on making you feel trapped. Every hallway looks almost the same. Every room feels strangely familiar. After a while, you begin questioning your own memory. Did you already walk through this hallway? Or is this a completely different one? That confusion becomes the movie's biggest weapon. One thing I absolutely love is that the movie doesn't rush. Modern horror films often throw monsters at you within the first 10 minutes. Backrooms does the opposite. It slowly builds tension until your own imagination starts creating monsters before the movie even shows anything. Honestly, sometimes your brain is a much better horror director than Hollywood. If I entered the Backrooms, I'd probably survive for 5 minutes. Then I'd hear the Wi-Fi disconnect sound and completely lose hope. The story follows Clark, a furniture store owner whose life is already falling apart before he discovers something impossible beneath his business. What begins as an ordinary day slowly transforms into a nightmare that no amount of common sense can explain. That's one reason the opening works so well. The movie first convinces you that everything is normal. Then, little by little, reality starts breaking apart. The transition feels natural, making the horror much more believable. Is something most viewers don't realize during their first watch. The yellow walls aren't just there because they look creepy. They're intentionally designed to look ordinary. If the walls were covered in blood or strange symbols, your brain would immediately know you're in danger. But clean office wallpaper? That's something you've seen your whole life. The familiar environment tricks your brain into feeling uncomfortable without understanding why. That's psychological horror at its best. And here's a behind-the-scenes fact that blew my mind. Instead of creating everything with CGI, the production built more than 30,000 square feet of physical backroom sets. Some crew members reportedly became disoriented while walking through the maze because so many corridors looked identical. That's dedication. They even tested dozens of wallpaper shades to find the exact yellow tone that felt unsettling without looking unrealistic. And have you noticed those fluorescent lights? They never stop buzzing. At first it seems like a tiny background sound, but after a while it becomes almost unbearable. That's intentional. The sound design isn't just there to scare you, it slowly drains your patience and makes you feel trapped. It's the kind of detail you don't consciously notice until you suddenly realize you're feeling anxious for no obvious reason. Imagine trying to sleep in the Backrooms. Alexa, turn off the lights. Backrooms, no. As the movie continues, something interesting starts happening, not just to the characters, but to you as the viewer. At first, every hallway looks exactly the same. After a while, you start looking more carefully, wondering if you've seen that corner before, or if it's actually a different room. That's one of the film's biggest strengths. It quietly turns the audience into part of the experience. Instead of simply watching someone get lost, you begin feeling lost yourself. And honestly, that's much scarier than a monster suddenly jumping out of the darkness. The sound design deserves a lot of credit here. Horror movies often rely on loud jump scares, but Backrooms chooses a different path. The constant buzz of fluorescent lights, the echo of footsteps, and long moments of silence create tension that slowly builds under your skin. It's the kind of horror that doesn't disappear when the scene ends. Instead, it follows you, making even an ordinary office hallway feel a little unsettling. After watching this movie, every empty office building suddenly becomes a five-star horror attraction. Even going to work starts feeling suspicious. Here's something I kept thinking about while watching. The backrooms don't just represent a physical maze. They can also symbolize those moments in life when you feel completely stuck. Sometimes you know you need to move forward, but every direction looks exactly the same. Whether the filmmakers intended that interpretation or not, it's one reason the setting feels so memorable. The horror isn't only about escaping a place, it's about confronting uncertainty. Another thing that impressed me is how much of the environment feels real. Practical sets give the hallways weight and texture that can be difficult to achieve with computer-generated imagery alone. You can almost imagine how confusing it would be for the actors to walk through identical corridors for hours during filming. That sense of realism helps sell the illusion that the backrooms could actually exist somewhere just beyond ordinary reality. One clever thing about the movie is that it doesn't always show everything. Sometimes what you don't see becomes far more frightening than what appears on screen. Your imagination starts filling in the blanks, and our imagination is often much more creative than any visual effect. That's why some scenes stay with you long after the credits roll. Me during the movie. It's probably nothing. 5 seconds later, nope, it's definitely something. Small visual details also make a huge difference. The faded wallpaper, worn carpets, repetitive architecture, and harsh fluorescent lighting all create an environment that feels strangely familiar. Almost everyone has been inside a building that looked a little like this, which makes the horror feel surprisingly believable. The movie takes everyday spaces and gently twists them into something deeply unsettling. I also like that the movie doesn't rush to explain everything. Some mysteries remain mysteries, and that gives viewers something to discuss after leaving the theater. Whether you enjoy every unanswered question or wish for more explanations will depend on your personal taste. But there's no denying that the film encourages conversation. And honestly, movies that people keep talking about days later usually leave the strongest impression. So here's a question for you. If someone offered you $1 million to spend just 24 hours inside the backrooms, with no phone, no map, and no guarantee you'd find your way out, would you accept the challenge? Let me know in the comments because I'm genuinely curious how many people would take that risk. Personally, I'd probably say yes for the first 5 seconds, and then spend the remaining 23 hours, 59 minutes, and 55 seconds regretting my decision. One detail that makes this movie stand out is its setting. The story takes place in the 1990s, and Clark runs a struggling furniture store called Captain Clark's Ottoman Empire. Even the name sounds like a place you'd see in a weird late-night commercial. The movie spends time showing Clark's ordinary life before everything becomes terrifying. And that actually makes the horror stronger. When something impossible appears in an ordinary place, our brains automatically start asking, what would I do in that situation? The turning point comes when Clark discovers a strange opening hidden behind a wall in the basement of his store. Not a glowing portal, not a magical doorway, just a small crack that shouldn't exist. And honestly, that's what makes it creepy. The backrooms don't arrive with dramatic music and special effects. They appear quietly, like reality itself has developed a glitch. As Clark becomes obsessed with the mystery, the movie starts exploring one of its biggest themes, curiosity. Sometimes humans are more afraid of not knowing than of actual danger. The deeper he investigates, the harder it becomes to walk away. And let's be honest, if most of us found a secret room that shouldn't exist, we'd probably say, "I'll just take one quick look." Famous last words. Another important character is Dr. Mary Klein, Clark's therapist. At first, she doesn't fully believe what he's describing, which is understandable because if someone told you they found an endless dimension behind a wallpaper crack, you'd probably recommend a vacation, not an investigation. But when Clark disappears, the situation becomes impossible to ignore. One thing fans of the original Backrooms videos will appreciate is the found footage feeling. The movie often creates the sense that we're watching evidence of something that was never meant to be discovered. That style makes the horror feel strangely real, almost like you're watching footage someone found on an old videotape, inspired by the original viral Backrooms shorts. Now here's the crazy behind-the-scenes fact. Director Kane Parsons was only 20 years old when the film became a massive success. He went from making viral YouTube horror videos to directing a major A24 movie that topped the box office. That's one of the biggest creator-to-Hollywood success stories we've seen in years. And the audience reaction was huge. The film reportedly opened with around $81 million domestically, becoming one of A24's biggest hits, and making Kane Parsons the youngest filmmaker ever to debut at #1 in North America. That's incredible for a movie that started as an internet horror concept, based on reported box office coverage. What I personally liked most is that the movie understands something many horror films forget. Fear grows in empty spaces. The Backrooms are terrifying because they look almost normal. No haunted castle, no ancient curse, just endless rooms that feel wrong in a way you can't fully explain. It's the kind of horror that makes you look twice at ordinary buildings after the movie ends. My final verdict? If you're looking for non-stop jump scares every 2 minutes, this might feel slower than some mainstream horror movies. But if you enjoy atmosphere, mystery, psychological tension, and films that stay in your head for days, Backrooms is definitely worth watching. I'd give it 8.5 buzzing fluorescent lights out of 10. And now I want to ask you something. If you found a hidden doorway in your basement that led to the Backrooms, would you enter it for $1 million? Or would you close the door and pretend you never saw it? Let me know in the comments. And if you enjoyed this review, subscribe for more movie breakdowns, hidden details, and horror stories that might make you think twice before walking down an empty hallway alone.